Hello, and welcome to Confessions of a Terrible Leader, where real leaders share the raw truth about the lessons they learned the hard way, so you don't have to. Join our host, Lacey Nelson, founder of Transcend Leadership Collective and former terrible leader. Every leader can become worthy of being followed if they are willing to put in the work. On this podcast, we share the messy stories and behind-the-scenes reality of what the work actually entails. We welcome you to this community of revolutionary leaders who believe honest communication, healthy conflict, and building cultures of acceptance, respect, and trust are not only possible, but non-negotiable for cultivating world-class teams. Hello, friends, and welcome back to Confessions of a Terrible Leader. I'm your host, Lacey Nelson, and let's not forget, former terrible leader. So today we have a guest with us that I am really looking forward to learning from and learning about. I will share with you in full transparency, I'm learning about Shawn Marshall the same time you're learning about Shawn Marshall. Shawn Marshall is a man who motivates, who connects, who helps people to make transitions in their lives, to think about things and reframe things in a new way. And he is here today I'm excited to get to learn about what motivates him. How did he get to this point? All of the things. So Shawn, tell us a little bit about yourself. What did I leave out in that introduction? We want to know what's the name of your organization, all of the things.
Yeah, I love that. You mentioned before we went live that you looked up my website and Instagram or whatever. And I was like, oh man, that sucks. Because my public profile, if you look at my public profile, it does not represent the work I do. And it's been intentional. I have intentionally not created a great website. What I've done is built an email audience, and I show up every single day to my email audience and my groups through that channel. Publicly, you would never know that. So yeah, you could say I'm a reinvention coach. I'm a personal leadership coach. I've been in the emotional intelligence space for 17, 18 years. And that's the work I do. You could spin it around purpose and like life purpose, living a purposeful life, a vision-driven life. That's the stuff that really lights me up, is supporting people who perhaps are already leaders. I'd say half my clients are people that are really doing well in life, making $1 million. I have a couple women that are in politics. One of them is running for office right now, but something happens in their life, difficult, emotional. They don't have the tools necessarily to work through it. So I help them move through that stuff. Or somebody who's been on a path and just hit a wall on that path. They don't want to be on this path anymore, but they've got an identity of being a nurse for 20 years or being in this marriage for 20 years or being a mom or whatever, but there's something has emerged inside of them. They want to take their life in a different direction. And I help them clarify, what is that direction? What's true for you? And let's make it happen. So that's a little bit about myself. And I've been an entrepreneur. I got a military background, and I've been an entrepreneur really my whole life, except for the 4 years I was in the military.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for your service. And also, I cannot wait to learn about how you got to this place you are as an entrepreneur who has a military background, who's now helping other people with transition. There's a story there. So fill us in. What led to getting to where you are now and doing the work that you're doing? What transpired in your life that landed you here? And when I ask that question, it's not just like the nuts and bolts of it, like what we'd see on a resume, but I'm making an assumption that there may have been some deeper stuff that you had to work through that now has been part of your experience that you're like, man, I want to pass what I learned on to others.
Sure. Yeah. There's probably 3 chapters, right, that would really be significant to paint that picture. There's the chapter I'm in now, running a coaching company. There's the chapter prior to this where I ran a fitness company. I was in the fitness and nutrition industry for quite a while. And then there's a chapter before that I was in an illegal business after the military. I got out of the military. I went into an illegal business. I got into the marijuana industry prior to the marijuana industry being, what it is today, this legal thing. Started off as this, hey, I made some civilian friends while I was in the military. They all smoke weed. Being an entrepreneur, I was like, I could just buy a bunch of weed and sell it to these guys and make some cash. Well, I did that, and that snowballed into a pretty crazy lifestyle. There was a point that my partner and I were dealing with the Mexican mafia on a regular basis, and it just almost went sideways. Meaning I could have ended up in jail, or I could have ended up even worse, who knows, perhaps dead or something like that. But also I went sideways from my heart. When I got out of the military, I didn't know who I was at that point point in my life. And so I got into this industry, and we're talking 20 years ago at this point for a time frame. Right. I was so afraid and so insecure that I would get robbed or something like that, because that's the type of stuff that happens or happened in that industry, that I created a persona that wasn't real. I created this, it's funny to talk about it. I use the word gangster all the time, just like she's gangster, that grandma's gangster or whatever. But I created this fake image of myself that I was this badass gangster type of guy as a protective mechanism so that I wouldn't get robbed, basically. But in doing so, I grew this beard, I had on backwards, dark sunglasses, had this big old mastiff dog with me. And it was this image that I created and then stepped into the image. And I did that for 5 years. And so 5 years down the path, I was really sideways and so here's how I realized it. So this kind of connects to the leadership company I own now. I got enrolled, a friend of mine enrolled me into a leadership training program. It was rooted in emotional intelligence. It came out of the S trainings. I'm not sure if your viewers, all these trainings rolled out of the S trainings back from the 60s. I did this trainings as transformational leadership. I couldn't even spell the word leadership at that point in my life. No joke. Walk into this training and suddenly there's this opportunity to be honest and get to know who I really am. And I remember at one point in this training, I end up getting on the microphone in front of this group of people and I'm crying in front of and I'm a man at this point in my life. Men don't cry, all this crap. I'm crying my eyes out in front of this group of people. I reconnected to my heart. I had divulged some things about the way I told them this is what I'm doing in my life. I was treating women poorly at that point in my life. I had a lot of people around me, but I didn't have a lot of legit connections, heartfelt connections. And I realized it, all of it. And I realized it so, it was so in my face that I couldn't continue to do what I was doing. And I was making so much money at that point. I had bought property in San Diego. This is so funny to talk about. Some of my tribe is watching this and they don't know this story, but I had 7 cars and I just had this lifestyle built up around money. And then I got back in my heart, in my emotions, got connected to a vision and realized I literally can't go back and keep doing this work anymore. It would be impossible. It was like this chemical change that happened inside of me. So I went back that course was in Las Vegas. I went back to San Diego. I sold my share of the business.
I got to ask a question. Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
hate to interrupt.
No, you're good.
I want to hear, but I want to, before I lose the thread on it.
Yeah.
That's a big moment to go from 5 years of living in total inauthenticity that was bringing you success, but clearly not material success, but not spiritual. It was not good for you. What happened in that conference that was the catalyst? I mean, you went to it, but what was it in those moments that really hit for you, that cracked you in essence? Because you likely had been exposed to some other things at other points, but maybe you didn't. But what was it about this that hit in the right way?
Yeah, I mean, it's something about experiential learning. And it was an experiential learning course. I don't remember the question that I was asked, but the trainer, Sylvia Badashi, she asked me, she's a relationships trainer as well, world class, and you've never heard of her probably. She asked me, something bubbled up. I don't even remember what bubbled up. Emotions start bubbling up. Something's here. I can't ignore it. And I walk up on this stage to share. And whatever question she asked me, what came up for me was about the woman that I was dating at the time. And I had this woman that I was dating. She was a young mother, and I had basically been playing games with her. I kept women at that point in my life at arm's distance. I was afraid. I had this mentality and this belief that women are, put whatever bad word you want to put in, they're going to cheat on me. I'm going to get cheated on. I'm going to get hurt. So instead of allowing that to happen, I'm going to keep you at arm's distance. And so that's what I was doing with this girl. And she was kind of like my side piece, if you will. She was gorgeous. We'd go out to clubs and bars. She'd go get the drinks for us, and everyone turning their heads looking at her. And there was this ego thing. I was like, yeah, she's like the trophy woman. And then I realized it in the moment, and I was like, holy shit, I love her and I want to be with her. And I got up on the stage and said all this that I just said to you and your audience. And then I just started crying. It was all bubbling, the ugly cry. And then the trainer walked up to me and she said, I'll probably get emotional saying this. She goes, close your eyes, put your hand on your heart. And I did. I closed my eyes, put my hand on my heart like this. And then I felt 100 arms around me. And she called the whole group up. And there's 100 people. They all came up and I just got this big group hug. So yeah, that I don't remember the question that she asked, but it was something around, I just really got present and honest to the way I was showing up in relationships, especially with women.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
What a transformational moment, right?
Yeah.
To as helping others, those are what we hope that we're delivering. And until you've experienced one, I don't think you can quite grasp the power of just the right question at the right time and building that authenticity, that desire for it to come up and bubble to the surface, and where you just can't deny yourself in that moment anymore. Like, I feel like I'm going to explode. For me, it feels very physical when that happens. It's a physical sensation.
Yeah.
Okay. 7 cars. Let's get back to this story. 7 cars. What happened?
Yeah. So I go back to San Diego and all of a sudden I'm awake. So I started listening. I found Eckhart Tolle. I'm listening to The Power of Now, walking around the neighborhood. I literally, Lacey, I'm walking through the neighborhood like this guy that thought he was a gangster. And I'm looking at flowers and I'm like, these are so pretty. And I'm just bumbling around the neighborhood looking at flowers and the sky and going to the ocean. And I couldn't do that work. So this is 20 years ago, I was netting 6 figures from this industry, had property, and I just gave it all up. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a concern. What am I going to do? I just knew I couldn't do this anymore. And so I went through this period. We went to Peru. I went to Peru right after that with my mom and dad and told them the whole, everything that was happening. And every day I started writing in Peru. And I'm telling you, I was the last person ever to write anything in high school, even college. I just wasn't going to write. I was like the bad boy in school. I put my books in the locker, go home, not do homework. I'd have a pretty girl I'd copy from in school. And all of a sudden, this is when MySpace, the social platform, was out.
Oh, yeah.
And I started going to these internet cafes in Peru, and all this writing started coming out of me. So I started writing a blog. I started writing about the way men treat women, about the way women treat men, and all this stuff. And I haven't stopped writing since then. I just got a book deal actually with Brian Tracy. There's a few other authors. And I write every day now to my audience. I don't skip a day. So all this started flooding out. And every day I'm asking, I didn't have like a strong relationship with God, but I had a relationship. And every day I would ask God, I'd say, hey man, what am I supposed to be doing with my life? And every day I got the same answer, and it was fitness. And every day I was like, nah, every day. What are you doing? What am I supposed to be doing? Fitness. Nah, I'm not confident. No one's going to follow me. I'm not even in shape. I did this for a month. And finally one day, I swear to God, God hit me in the face with a 2x4. And he was like, dude, fitness, dummy. And I just landed differently. And so I went back to San Diego from Peru. Fitness was a dream I had since I was a little kid. There's a long story there. I won't get into that. And got into the fitness industry. And I was so poor at that point financially. I was buying my meals from the dollar store. And I don't know if you just saw the dollar stores going out of business. I'm like, man, I'm glad that didn't happen back then, because I literally was buying enchiladas from the frozen section at the dollar store. But I was happy. I was happy all of a sudden. Yeah. And I knew who I was all of a sudden. I got this job as a trainer. And then, that was the next chapter. I ended up building a very successful fitness and nutrition company.
I want to know, what would you say, not to the military version of you, not to the inauthentic drug dealer version of you, but what would you say right now to the middle path version of you, when you were starting to smell the flowers, give it all up, find really connecting with who you are and the happiness, but at really the beginning of dipping your toes in that pool of what it looks like to live a life in alignment? What would you say to yourself, that version of you right now?
Yeah, the version that's just bumbling through, looking at flowers, checking out the bees, who's all of a sudden financially broke. Yeah, I would say lean stronger into this. Like, this is truth. Lean into it. You're on the path, this feeling of happiness, this feeling of freedom. This is what you've been wanting. And I would also say, be mindful of the stories that you may make up around money and finances, because I created a whole bunch of stories around money and finances that I had to unwind throughout the years. So I would say, hey, money is not bad, dude. It's the way that you were relating to money and working for money up until this point.
Yeah. I can relate to that on a very deep level, being a child who came out of poverty, grew up in a trailer court, had a lot of experiences. This interview is not about me. It's about you.
All
so
good.
the relating of the stories about money and the mindset around money. And that's huge. That also was a huge change, had to be a huge shift in my own journey as well, is learning that. So one of our core values is people over profit. And I always say that doesn't mean that we don't like money or we're not a not-for-profit. Not the not-for-profits don't like money. That's a whole nother discussion. It's not that we don't like money or value money or want to make money and have margins. Of course we do. What it means is we use money to love people. We don't use people in the service of the love of money. And so that nuanced shift, right, of recognizing that and that money is a tool when you use it right. It's a tool. It doesn't have to be a weapon. But anyways, just that moment of connection, lean stronger into what you know and be careful about the money stories. 100% connect with that. And I'm imagining a lot of listeners are connecting with that right now too. How did you start to recognize you even had things you needed to unwind? Where were your biases and your prejudices at?
Yeah, around money specifically, or yeah?
Yeah, around money.
Yeah, it's interesting because I started making money when I was young. When I was 10 years old, my parents were like, I was like, hey, can I get some video games? And they're like, yeah, here's how you earn money to get video games. So I'm like walking around. I actually lived in Denver at that point. I'm back in Denver now. I'm walking around as a 10-year-old with a lawnmower in the summer, knocking on doors, a shovel in the winter, rake in the fall. Can I rake your leaves? So money actually did come easily for me from a little kid. And that's why being in the marijuana game, I had massive success very fast because I didn't have any money blocks. It was easy. It was simple. It was a no-brainer. I was already wired that way.
Yeah.
But suddenly, when I parted from that game, then all these money stories creeped in. Then I realized, holy shit, this self-worth. Because Lacey, if we're being honest, I didn't know myself at all, even growing up, even high school, college, the military, I didn't know myself. So there was an aspect of me that was wired around, I can go make money and work for money because I can get these things, then it gives me an image. Yeah. So once that was all gone, I had to reconfigure who am I and who am I with money? Because none of that stuff was going to work anymore. I couldn't be about image, So I started reading books. I read The Soul of Money like 10 times, Lynn Twist. There's an abundance and prosperity course I took and then later became a coach in that course. And then I hired a business coach. I've had a business coach. They helped significantly unwind the money stories. And then it just became like literally a commitment to take it on, face whatever crap was coming up around money, whatever scarcity was there, and then unwind it and go deeper and go deeper and go deeper until my worth wasn't attached to money, because that's what it was at that point. It was like self-worth and money. From my experience of coaching, those two are married. So it was like a balancing act of raising my self-worth, but also not realizing that, not having it be that money is my self-worth, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it very much so does. So chapter 1, military, chapter 2, figuring out who am I, totally stripped away of all the things you'd been using to define yourself that you realized they were empty. They were shallow. They weren't you. You just had pretended they were you. You were wearing it like a costume. Yeah. Now you're figuring out, you're starting to explore, taking classes, learning who you are. Tell me more about chapter 3.
Yeah. Chapter 3 would be this chapter, I guess, the running the coaching company. And there was a whole fitness thing. So the fitness thing, there comes a point, I'll just share this. I built this fitness company, right? And my goal, this is another piece I think people need to hear. The goal that I had was twofold. And the goal was a reaction from being scarce with money. So the goal was, I want to be financially abundant. And then when I started the fitness company, I was working like 18 hours a day, working like a dog, and not mad about it. I'm happy about it at that point. Yeah. So then that made a goal. The reactionary goal was, I want to have time freedom, money and time freedom. Okay. So fast forward, I built this awesome company, changed a lot of lives, built a big community. But once I achieved money and time freedom, I was done. And then I hit a wall. And I remember walking by myself one morning. All my clients had just left, and I got a message from God. And he said, this isn't it. This was 2017. And I was like, fuck you, mean? Is it okay to cuss? Sorry if it's not okay to cuss.
100%.
I'm like, fuck you mean this ain't it, dude? And I knew what the message was. Yeah. Fitness isn't it anymore. It's over. Yeah. And I didn't want to hear that reality. It just, but it was the reality. I was over. So from 2017 to 2020, I got disconnected from my passion because fitness wasn't the course. And then I had all these stories made up around, I got this reputation. Everyone in San Diego knows me as a fitness guy. Who's going to take me serious doing anything else? Meanwhile, I've been doing leadership coaching for that academy that I took that course at back in 2007. So already 10 years I've been coaching on the side for this company. Yeah. And I just didn't have the belief belief yet that I could change careers and do leadership coaching. So I stayed the course until I just ran out of passion. I got to the point where I took the business online in 2020. I'm working 3 hours a week, netting 6 figures. It's like time and money freedom. I'm living this like almost like penthouse thing in Denver. I moved to Denver, overlooking downtown. And I'm so bored and I'm tired, like exhausted at this point.
Yeah.
I hate to say I hated fitness at this point. I got to a point where I hated it. I was like, this is stupid. I don't want to do this work anymore. So it took a little bit of time for me to wrap my heart around what's the mission that I'm being called to next. And it was during the pandemic, watching the way people were fighting over vaccines, watching the way they were fighting over Black Lives Matter, over abortion, over Trump, over every freaking hot button topic, and I'm watching like fathers and sons that I know go at it on Facebook about Trump and go at it about vaccines. And it opened a vision for me. It connected me to a vision. And it's in that time, I just had this thought that if people had purpose, if they really knew their purpose, and if they had emotional intelligence, we wouldn't be fighting like this. Mm-hmm. We couldn't be doing it. And then that's when I realized, dude, I've been doing emotional intelligence and leadership and purpose work for like 15 years now. That's when I was actually talking to Dan Brule, who's Tony Robbins' breath coach. We were doing an interview, and that's when the vision hit me when I was interviewing him. And I said it to him, and I had this new vision and then this new clarity and sense of purpose that, wow, I can bring this to the world. Yeah. I can actually help with this. And that's when I took a trip to Costa Rica for a month. I was in a relationship at that point that was sideways, wasn't aligned either. Came back from this Costa Rica trip, broke up with the girl, broke up with fitness. Very similar to the way I broke up with the marijuana game. I just burned it down and started over. Just trusted that I would earn a living doing it. And I did. I replaced the income in 90 days. And I'm just doing the work now that I love to do and I'm passionate. It's the leadership coaching that I was doing for the academy back in the day, but now I'm doing it for my own company.
I love that. All right. Here's the question, the big question we ask every person.
Okay.
You've laid out a lot of your story, and I could definitely pick some things out, but I don't want to assume. I want you to tell me, in your journey, when you look back, what is one of your biggest mistakes that you're like, man, don't do this, listeners, or at least learn from me what you will. Maybe they need to do it for their journey, but you want to give them some insight. What do you deem as one of the biggest mistakes that you made in your journey of learning how to lead, learning how to listen to yourself, and how does it shape the way that you move through the world today?
Yeah. Okay. Cut out for a second there, but I think what I heard you say was, what's one of the bigger mistakes that I learned throughout my journey that I could share? Yeah. It's this mentality of do what I say, but then I'm not going to do it myself. So like coaching from concept, taking a concept and sharing a concept with a client or somebody and expecting them to get the concept. And then when they don't get it, or if they're not moving, making progress toward what they want to move, then blaming them, and thinking like, oh, that my client's not moving or whatever. When I was at the Leadership Academy, we take small groups. There'd be like 100 students. And as a coach, I take 6 or 8 students at a time. Okay. So, and then that game was all results based. And so they actually declared a result that they were going to create in 90 days. And then my effectiveness as a coach was based on whether or not they achieved what they said they were going to achieve. So then I could come back to my mentor and say, yeah, my team sucks. They're not doing the work. They're lazy. They're procrastinating. They don't want to be here. And what I learned was that they're a reflection of me. Because I could look around and see the other teams, and I may see one coach with their team and they're kicking ass. And it would be easy for me to just be a victim to that and say, well, they got a good group. They got Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. And I got, the college players that don't really want to play the game. And what I had to learn, I'm so thankful for this, is that I got to look at my life and then say, where are these people actually a reflection of me? Therefore, where are they, how is it that they're a reflection of me? And so then I look at something that was going on in my life, a relationship I was in, or my health, or my own relationship with money. And then I get a client who has a money story. And it's like, I try to coach them on money, and I use the word try on purpose. They're not going to have a money breakthrough when I'm not taking my own money stuff on. So it's not like I'd go to the client and say, hey, I got money stuff I'm working on too. No, this is all behind the scenes. So my coach would coach me and say, well, what's the breakthrough? Yeah. Let's go have a breakthrough with money. So then I would go have my own breakthrough with money and go walk through the uncomfortable area that I didn't want to walk through.
Yep.
And then once I had that actual experience of having a breakthrough, my energy would shift. I'd be in totally different energy. I'd understand experientially what needed to happen to have that breakthrough. Then I could go back and coach my team, and it's a different energy. They get a different result. So I think that the mistake was, I'm going to sit back here and have you go do all the work that you're going to do, but I'm not actually walking the talk in my own life.
Oh my God. So beautiful and accurate. I hope every person listening, whether they are leading in the capacity of coaching, like formally, but if you listeners, if you're a boss, if you are running a team of people and you're like, I'm not a formal coach. Yes, you are. If you are running a team of people at work, you are trying to get them to meet an objective every single day. And if you feel like you're banging your head against the wall, they are absolutely a reflection of you. And there could not be more relevance in what you shared, Shawn. Thank you. That was such a great reminder and powerful way to share just the impact of our energy truly does shift. Those of you that are like, I don't know about the woo-woo. I don't love woo-woo either. It's more than woo-woo. It's brain science. It's neuron mirroring. It's real. So listen to Shawn.
That's right. It's definitely real. Ignore it or not.
Yep.
Energy's real. Somebody walks into a room and they're stunning and you're in a conversation with somebody, you're going to notice that person that just walked in the room because their energy is so powerful. Mm-hmm. So what's the difference?
Yeah. 1,000,000%. Oh, well, thank you so much for making time to be here today, Shawn, for sharing your story, for sharing your learning, what powerful work you're doing out there. If people want to find you, if they really resonated and want to connect, how do they find you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on. I love being on. I hope that somebody grabs something today and can go implement in their life. Then this time was spent with you in a useful way. Yeah. If you want to come into my world, the best way probably to come into my world, I write my audience every day. I don't use ChatGPT. I don't have a copywriter. I'm sharing real stuff like we did here from my clients, from stuff they're going through. Just go to my Instagram is probably the best way. I'm not that active on Instagram, but if you click on my link tree, there's a link that says daily motivation, something like that. So just drop your name and email there. You'll be bumped in to get my daily inspiration. And then if you want to talk, just reply to any of those emails. My team doesn't have access to that inbox. They have access to a different inbox that I use for expert stuff. So if you write back to that, you're going to get directly to me. So that would be the best way to come into my world.
Awesome. Excellent. Thank you so much. We will drop all of Shawn's links below in the show notes so that you can go find him. And thank you again. Thank you for your time. I have no doubt that there's more than one person that's going to grab a piece or 5 of the nuggets you shared today that is really going to enrich their experience. So thank you for being here. And until next time, friends, go manage like a leader.
Thanks for being part of this community of revolutionary leaders who believe honest communication, healthy conflict, and building cultures of acceptance, respect, and trust are not only possible, but non-negotiable for cultivating world-class teams. If one-to-one coaching, engaging workshops, or strategic planning that is actually useful are anything that interests you, make sure to head over to transcendleadershipcollective.com to check out our free resources. Confessions of a Terrible Leader is hosted by Lacey Nelson and produced by Mary Scott. Music is by Leif Olson and Mary Scott from the band The Number of Months. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave us a review. And until next time, go manage like a leader.